how can, as entrepreneurs, how can someone like myself or another entrepreneur boost engagement with their employees?
Okay, so we've got again, I haven't named them, but I've identified 5 types of people: high flyers, steady gliders, lackers, slackers, and hackers. And so high flyers are make leaders look brilliant. All you have to do is give them a job. They have a lot of confidence. They can go and do it. Most highly successful entrepreneurs are high flyers. They just see a job, they get it done, they chunk it, they work, 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 work. If they have an Achilles heel, it's not bringing in somebody to help them with what you were saying, pass things off. And then there are these 4 other types that people need to understand. So this
You're listening to the Focus on Customer Experience podcast. Benjamin Del Grosso gives you the ins and outs of one of the most underlooked aspects in business today. Improve your customer service and watch your business skyrocket.
2, 1.
Now, here's your host, Benjamin Del Grosso.
Hello and welcome to the show. Today we have Sherene McHenry. She is the People IQ expert, former graduate professor turned full-time speaker and author. Sherene has spoken on 3 continents, authored multiple books, and writes a syndicated magazine column on leadership and interpersonal issues in the workplace. Sherene has a PhD in counselor education, is a certified speaking professional, and past president of the Michigan National Speakers Association. Sherene, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. I'm thrilled to be here.
This is great. So how did you, get to where you are today? Like, give a little bit of the Coles Notes of your story.
When I was a kid, everybody told me I should be a teacher, but my parents were teachers and I had watched how hard they work and how little they got paid. And so I would always just go, no, no, I don't want to be a teacher. No, I'm not going to be a teacher. And apples don't fall very far from trees. And I think our giftedness is evidenced when we're young. And it took me a lot of times going around the block to go, oh my gosh, I love teaching. I have this innate ability to make complex things simple. And I love the light bulb of learning that goes on when there's understanding. So I got my doctorate, became a professor, did that for almost 20 years. And I was a good professor. I was a tenured full professor. But there was just part of me that was never satisfied, and that's probably like a lot of your entrepreneurial listeners. They're good at their job, but maybe it's not the right job for them. And so what I found that I loved was speaking. I filled in for somebody that backed out of a conference. I made the audience laugh, and I went, "That's fun." And so a couple of years I did it. I didn't know you could get paid for it. Somebody's like, "What would it cost?" I'm like, "You can get paid to do this?" Sometimes we don't even know what we can get paid for. And so then somebody said, "How much would it cost?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then it's like, oh, people make a living doing this. But it's very hard for me as the child of educators to learn how to be a businesswoman. And again, that might be something some of your entrepreneurs are struggling with. They have these great ideas, they have these incredible skills, and yet we have to learn the world of business. And so speaking is a business. So I had to learn the industry. I had to learn how to be an entrepreneur. And 11 years ago, I left that tenured full professorship. I've never looked back, and I absolutely love what I get to do. So my business is called Fully Engaged, and I want people fully engaged in their work and in their life and when they play. And so I think if we'll use our skill sets and our passions, we can create incredible businesses. But maybe like me, some of your listeners have some divot holes that they have to shore up in order to be highly successful.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs will be not completely fulfilled, in their jobs. And for me, for many years, I probably should have pulled the pin in being an entrepreneur a lot earlier, because what was going on with me is I would come to a place, and this comes back to like Best Buy. I got to the point where I hit a point where nobody really, I didn't have to do anything. I showed up to work and just made sure, pat people on the back, good job. And it got to the point where I wasn't being challenged. And so they moved me to another department that was completely out of my realm. And I took it from like 35th in the company out of like, I think it was 38 stores at the time, to top 3. And then I took it to number 1 in 3 months. And then between Best Buy Future Shop, I took it to number 1 net profit year to date in like 3 or 4 months or something like that. And then I hit the 6-month mark. I'm like, I'm just not being challenged here anymore. And I was looking for that new challenge. So I moved on. I went somewhere else. And then that company there was opening up a new location, and I was promoted to assistant manager, promoted to general manager, running the entire store. And like, again, we passed the other store in the company, moved up, and got to the point where I didn't feel I was being that challenged anymore. And that's the big thing, is as an entrepreneur, you are being challenged on a frequent basis all the time. And that is probably what I needed, because at 10 years with that company, I then quit, went somewhere else for a new challenge. It didn't really quite work out, probably because our values and vision and stuff weren't aligned together, and that stuff happens. But the big thing is if you're looking to continuously being challenged, that is life of an entrepreneur. Constant change all the time.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that is so frustrating with entrepreneurs when it comes to the people that they're hiring and leading, because they are usually incredibly driven, very bright, competitive, want a challenge. They get a job, it gets done. They're absolute rock stars. And then they hire in people who are not wired that way. And then they just want to pull their hair out and just go, why don't people just do their job? And what I've come up with is there are 5 types of people, and they can and will do their job, but you have to lead them differently. And so if you're a solo entrepreneur, that's one thing. All you have to lead is yourself. But as you're
Yeah.
growing these successful businesses, you're going to want to ensure that you have really good people skills and an understanding of people, because one size leadership doesn't fit all. And our natural default is to assume that everybody is like us. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And the research bears that out.
Yeah. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I know I have friends who are entrepreneurs, and the number one thing they always say is, I need another me. And I
Yes.
always have to explain to them, you don't need another you. You're like, yeah, no, I do. Because if I can replace me, then I won't have to do this work. I'm like, no, you need to find out what takes the most amount of your time and hire someone who can do that, which takes the most amount of your time. Especially if you don't enjoy doing that, hire somebody who does
Jettison.
enjoy doing it.
Yes.
But no, I need to. I'm like, I don't like, I'll buy them books. Like, here you go. Here's this book. Read the E-Myth. Read this. This will help you understand. But yeah, a lot of times they don't. And the other thing is, like I told you off camera, I'm in a networking group. They always say, if you think your employees are going to have the same drive as you, it's not going to happen, because you're invested in the company. They are not. You can motivate them, you can push them, but it's hard to get them to be at that exact level. You might get them, to here, but it's hard because they're not as invested as you are.
Well, and
Right.
I think that's one of the problems with family-owned businesses. The
Oh
parent
yeah.
rock star creates this incredible business, begins to pass it on to their children, and the children usually don't have the same level of patience or skill set. And then if they don't teach the children how to get along, the founder becomes the tiebreaker, and then most family businesses fall apart in the second and third generations. And so again, the entrepreneur, the visionary, has this incredible skill set. The ones who create things that last understand people and are able to motivate people, understand people, and give them the people skills that they need to succeed. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know how to do conflict resolution, your business is not going to be highly successful for a long period of time. If you don't understand that there are people who fly under the radar and what they need, there are people who are the polar opposite of you who need deadlines, and there are people in our world who are actively trying to cause problems. The Gallup poll is done every year, and basically 85,000 US citizens take it. And again, Canada and the US, while we're different, obviously, have a lot of similarities in the workforce, but only 30 basically percent say that their people are committed and engaged to their work in their workplace. 50% self-report being passively engaged and disengaged. So they're coasting. And 18%, which I know the numbers didn't just add up to 100, but basically 18% of people self-report actively trying to cause problems. If you're not prepared to deal with that 18%, you're going to have havoc and you're always going to be putting out fires. But if you don't actually put the fire out, it's just going to sprout out somewhere else. And so that's my pleasure. And what I get to do is I get to help people understand people, bring out the best in people, safeguard their businesses by ensuring that people are not taking down the ship actively or passively. And so that's where I get excited, is just this ability to go, listen, everybody's not wired the same. You have these incredible skill sets. Let's bump your leadership up another level so that you truly understand the people who are working for you. And I think it always helps when we understand ourselves, because when we understand ourselves and others, we're able to set ourselves and others up for long-term success. And that's what I think the entrepreneur wants. Yes, they want to be successful. Yes, we want to make money. We want to make an impact. And I think what we really want, though, is something that has some lasting significance, not a flash in the pan. And if you don't get the people capital, you're probably going to have more flash in the pan and a lot more heartache and frustration, stress, all the things that we don't want to have that shorten our lifespan. We want those not in our businesses. There's enough headaches just solving
So
business problems.
we're talking about challenges with bringing on employees. So, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but how can, as entrepreneurs, how can someone like myself or another entrepreneur boost engagement with their employees?
Okay, so we've got, again, I haven't named them, but I've identified 5 types of people: high flyers, steady gliders, lackers, slackers, and hackers. And so high flyers make leaders look brilliant. All you have to do is give them a job. They have a lot of confidence. They can go and do it. Most highly successful entrepreneurs are high flyers. They just see a job, they get it done, they chunk it, they work, 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 work. If they have an Achilles heel, it's not bringing in somebody to help them with what you were saying, pass things off. And then there are these 4 other types that people need to understand. So the steady glider is hardworking, dependable, reliable, like the high flyer, but they fly under the radar. They don't want to be the leader. They want to be on the team. They don't want to push their ideas forward. They are more quiet, but if you ask them, they'll often share something wonderful. And then here's the thing about the steady glider that is overlooked and undervalued by so many entrepreneurs and high flyers, and that's, they want to go to work at 8, they want to be done at 5, and they don't want to think about your business until the next morning at 8. And then they will give you everything that they have. And they often get written off as unambitious, not willing to work hard. And these people, you don't want to write them off. Number one, they're usually the social glue of your organization. They're often phenomenal with customers because they build relationships. And what they're living is a value-based life. And their values are usually family or their community. And it might be the band in their time. So maybe you want to move them up and they say no. And they don't want to do it because they have 3 kids under the age of 6. It's not the right span. But if you caught them again when their children were older and you ask them their long-term plans, they may want to have advancement and to do the things that you're talking about. So that's underutilized. What we want to do with them is mentor them, figure out what they want. And I always think with a steady glider, they glide on loft. And so the strategic leader gives them loft and they find out what their passions are, but they understand these people are not going to want, they'll do it every once in a while, but it does not fit their life or their values to work 80 hours a week. It's just not their value. And then we have lackers, and the lackers keep running into the same brick wall. So if you have an employee who keeps running into the same brick wall, they're probably underperforming in that job function, maybe multiples, which means other people perhaps you have to pick up their slack, and it's very, very frustrating, and people don't understand. And so usually what we do to get them engaged is we throw money at training. And if training works, it was a training problem, it was a skill set problem. But if training doesn't work, it's a mindset problem. So I think back to my first job, Ben, and I got there. I knew how to interview. I was so excited. I didn't know myself very well, but I gave them all the right answers because I had trained people for 2 years on how to interview. And so I get in a job I have no business doing. In colleges, we train people. That's my background. I worked in career services before I became a professor. We actually train people how to do a job search, how to interview. And so I was so unaware of who I was. I just gave the right answer. Well, then I get in a job again, no business doing. So I'm working out of my weaker skill sets. I wake up every morning and wonder, is today the day they're going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing? I'm a mess. I'm becoming emotionally a mess. I'm becoming depressed. I am not getting my job functions done on time because I didn't know how to do them, but I didn't want to ask for help. And so my boss sends me to time management training with Franklin Covey. And it didn't work because it wasn't a time management problem. It was, I was the wrong person in the wrong job. I didn't know myself at that point. I didn't know how to ask for help. If she had said, Sherene, what's going on? You're not getting your work done, I probably would have burst into tears and go, I don't know, I'm not happy. And here's what I want your listeners to know is, oh my gosh, tears are not contagious. They aren't. Just sit there with them and give them a few seconds. So if again, there is a skill set problem, training will work. But if training doesn't work, immediately begin to look at what's the mindset problem. And that's the biggest gift I can give you is skill set problem, mindset problem. If it's a mindset problem, it's not your job as the entrepreneur to be their counselor and to figure it out. It's your job to say, hey, I need you to come up to speed and to know what your resources are in your community. Maybe they need counseling. Maybe they need a coach. Maybe they need something spiritual, and whatever it is, it's their job to get that and to work through what's holding them back. So those are the first three types. And then I wanted to give you a chance to respond because I've been a chatty Cathy.
I want to grab my book.
And I'm going to take a sip of coffee.
I never wrote this book, but
okay.
This is one of the best books I've ever read, and it changed my life. It's Now Discover Your Strengths.
Love it. I have not read that.
I think the new book is called Strengths Finder 2.0.
Yes.
And guess what? There's a Gallup survey that you can take, and it'll tell you your top 5 strengths. So because of this book, and when I worked at Best Buy 02 to 06, they went big into showing people this, getting people to read it, getting people to take the survey. And what they were trying to do is very big. They beat it into my head to build strengths-based organizations. So I've always looked at how can I build a strength-based organization? And I'd always have people say to me in some of my jobs, like, hey, like you need, similar to what I brought up earlier, we need another you to replace you so that you can move up. I'm like, no, I have my assistant manager strong at sales. I don't really enjoy sales as much as he does. So he needs to be my assistant. So whoever replaces me needs to be somebody who does have social skills, but needs to be able to manage people, like a people manager. That assistant manager will never be a store manager because he doesn't have the people skills of managing the employees, right? But he's filling a job, he's doing it perfectly, and he's probably like your number 2 that you listed there. He doesn't want to move up in the company. He's happy with being there. He's happy at being a top performer there. And he's happy with somebody managing and telling him what to do and how to do this and how to take care of the employees, how to take care of the customer. You need to do this to take care of the, you need to do this, right? But that's the thing. But the thing is after I left that company, people were like, I can't believe you guys kept this guy around. I'm like, well, that's because I complimented him. He complimented my weaknesses, right? And my strengths complemented his weaknesses, right? And that's the whole point of building a strength-based organization, right? So then the next person came in who had the same strengths as him, and then all they did was just conflict and butt heads together, right? But that's the thing, was you need to have those people that complement each other, and this is where I think a lot of business owners miss it. They, like I've said earlier, and I say time and time again, they keep thinking they need to hire another one of themselves, right? Which is completely wrong level of thinking. And that's also why I always tell people, read this book, because it actually has in here, you know, all the different kinds of strengths and everything in here. And it has a lot of these are very popular questions, that will actually make you see, do I know what is expected of me at work? Do I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work properly? At work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? In the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for good work? There's a lot more questions, but I've been very big on these because these 12 questions were the questions that were asked of us at Best Buy, and we would have to rank it 1 out of 5, from 1 to 5, and you would depend on that would measure your employee engagement. So I used to actually sit down directly with my employees and ask some of these questions to find out where they are and find out what I needed to do as a leader to get there. That's why I think this book is great. Anyways, that's my little spiel.
I'm a fan of Strength Finders as well. They opened my eyes to who I was, and it helped me begin to celebrate who I was. Because I think that what we do naturally, we kind of take for granted and assume that everybody else can do. And it let me begin to celebrate who I was and to find the right spot for me to shine. And so I love what you're describing here, because what you're doing is avoiding one size leadership fits all, because it doesn't work. And so you knew who this guy was, you knew how to set him up for success, and look at the success that your organization had because of that. And then my hunch is that began to decline once you left and he was no longer valued, and the management piece wasn't there as much. So it's one of those things that it always makes me sad when we don't have people in the right positions. And I think there are always clues to what the right positions are. There's an energy, there's an ease, there are just things that happen when we're in the right spot. And it doesn't mean that every job that is part of your job is going to be your favorite thing to do every day. There are things that are not my favorite part of my job, but my job is the perfect job for me. So
yeah, I want to add one thing in here. So for many years, I'd have some of these high performers that I've, trained and worked. And for many years, I used to get upset when they left.
yeah.
Right. I used to be upset. Like, these guys are screwing me. They're leaving me. But, I would say last 10 years, I've had a completely different outlook on it. Now I'm like, you know what? We did such a good job training them that they're able to go up to another level. We didn't have a job opening for them to move up, and they want to be better. They found a position somewhere else, in a different company, in a different industry. But the thing is, most entrepreneurs, they get stuck in this whole, like, Dave screwed me and now he's going to work for the competition. But okay, well, he was just a worker bee here. You want to be a supervisor, but you've had the same supervisor for 10 years. You're not firing that guy who's been here 10 years. He wants to better himself. You've given him the tools and the skills so that he could go somewhere else and be a supervisor.
Well, and people want to work for organizations. Right now, we don't have enough workers to go around. People are drawn to organizations where people are grown and where it's okay if they choose to go somewhere else if your organization can no longer meet their needs. Like, I think we want to hold those people with open hands. Obviously, we would want some warning and we would want them to leave well, but it's like, oh, wow, who wouldn't want to work for somebody who grew them and developed them and stayed with them And who's to say they don't send people into your pipeline who would be fantastic to work for you because they still have good feelings towards your company. And I was thinking entrepreneurs really don't have time to be angry. That person screwed me. Well, if you're going to focus on that and be angry, you just took away energy from your business and from your life. That's the problem with living in the past and with resentment and things, because it's all about the past. I want to live in the future. I want to live in the present and position myself well for the future. And so I work really, really hard with myself. And some of the speaking I do is, how do we live lives where we have energy, where we're not burned out, where we're able to be very forward focused? Because I've had things in my life I've just had to work through and release, and I'm a much better person and business person because of it.
Nice.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I'll let you finish the last two profiles as I've, butted in a few times.
No, I've loved it. So we have the high flyer, the steady glider, the lacker, and then we have the slacker. And
Ooh.
slacker is a negative term, and what these people are usually like considered as lazy, and I don't want this person on my team. And it's like, oh no, you need to understand, slacker is the negative term that we use. What they are is misunderstood, and they are really poorly managed in most cases, because what they are rockets. And so a rocket sits on a launch pad, and a rocket tends to think, but the rocket doesn't fire its engine until there's a deadline. So, you got the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and then the engines begin to mix. And then there's this incredible thing that happens with a rocket, and all the energy then allows it to go to the moon and infinity and beyond. And so what highly skilled leaders understand is what they want are high performance rockets. And high performance rockets are incredible team members. So here's what you need to understand to get them engaged and to bring out the best in them. Your comfort zone is get a job, get it off your list, and then move on to the next thing. And if anything's hanging over your head, that typically is distressing. And that's why entrepreneurs and high flyers tend to overwork, because they never want anything hanging over their head. And they live under this rule of you get to play when your work is done. And I'm going to tell you the truth, as an entrepreneur, your work is never going to be done. So you need to schedule in some downtime so you don't burn out. But the rocket gets a job, and they start thinking about it, and they may not have solved it, but they're noodling it, and they need to be doing all of their job functions. But what will always motivate, get them going and operating in their brilliance and in their best energy and spot is the deadline. So a high flyer, get it, it's done 2 weeks early, whatever it is. The rocket, if they get it to you at 11:59 and it's due at 12, the rocket goes, phew, I'm early. And they're delighted. So deadlines are your best friend. If you want these people engaged, set a deadline. And some of you are going, I shouldn't have to do that. And here's what I want to say is, if you don't think you should have to, try not doing it. The work will never get done. The rocket, if they say they'll do something and there's no deadline, if a year has gone by, they don't feel like they've violated the contract because it was never a when. But if you said, I need that Wednesday at noon, you can get it usually Wednesday at 11:59 a.m.
I got something to add to this.
Please do.
So this is why certain things that we did at Best Buy actually worked really well. So we had daily, weekly, and monthly goals. And every single day in the department, what I introduced was we actually had a scorecard in our department in our little communication binder, which would have our daily goal of the goal we needed to hit by the end of the day. And every hour, every employee had to learn how to log in and update every hour what we're at for the day to hit it. And that's why I think that worked so well with the majority of the mix of all the different employees with all different levels at Best Buy, because they were all part of that, trying to achieve that goal.
And my hunch is, as the day went on and the time shortened, they upped their game and they started hitting those benchmarks. Some of them could hit them really early. Some of them hit them later in the day, almost every day, right?
Yeah, like they started moving it up, and then when we noticed that they were slacking, right, as you say, like weren't doing some of the non-negotiables, as I like to call it, right? We would I would get a basket, like little baskets you pick in when you go into the, and we would put in the accessories that they weren't recommending to customers, and we'd make them carry it around until customers started asking about what why are you carrying around that basket. And well, actually, you're looking at speakers, sir, and the reason why this is actually something that would benefit your speakers. Like, okay, well, you've done the minimal of recommending it, you can put all the stuff back on the shelf, but we make them carry it around this basket
I love it.
so
What
they
a
would
great
develop it,
conversation starter
right?
and
But that,
reminder.
yeah, but it got them to that next level of performing because we were pushing them, right? They were capable. They were capable. Like you said earlier, these are capable people. They're rockets ready to explode. And most of these people just need to be shown the way.
Yes, and understood. And so again, if you will always have a deadline and you'll hold it, because it's the holding the deadline is what gets again those engines going and the product completed. I had a CEO once say to me, I want you to come and work with my team and I want you to make them all high flyers. And I said, well, wouldn't that be lovely? But so much of your business would not work well if that were the case. So I was just home and helping my parents with some things. And I did this list, and it's my last day at home, and it's a pretty long list, but we just chunked them out. And my mom, who is a prototype high flyer, looks at me in delight. She's never knocked so many things off of a list in one day in her life. She's like, starting to really like rockets. And I thought, she's never watched me rocket. She's never seen me operate in that giftedness that a rocket brings. Here's the other reason you want rockets on your team. They always go, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. So your rockets are your people who streamline your processes. And the unsophisticated leader, unenlightened leader might tend to think they're lazy. They're always looking for the quickest, easiest way out. But the brilliant entrepreneur says, oh my gosh, how can we replicate this? Because that's always the rocket's mantra. There has to be a better way. And so I call it rocket wisdom. And the rocket wisdom is there a better, faster way to do this? And if it is, the rocket will probably have found it. And let's figure out if we can replicate that. So have deadlines and always ensure quality control. If they turn in shoddy work, don't redo it for them, send it back, and then hold them accountable. And then the last type that I've identified are the hackers. And hackers are, I think there are 3 types of hackers, and they are causing problems. They're that percent of your business that are disengaged and actively trying to cause problems. So I think that there are 3 types, but you had a response to that,
I like to
Ben.
call them shit disturbers.
Well, that too, only I don't know.
That's the non HR friendly term.
Yeah, but it's how you feel, isn't it? So I think there are 3 types of those. We have lacquer hackers, and those are people who are lacking conflict resolution skills. And so I work with organizations and speak for a lot of associations and just help people develop their conflict resolution skills. I'm a rocket. I've simplified it. The research says it takes 16 to 18 hours of training before we start engaging in conflict resolution. I'm like, oh, nope, you get paid the big bucks as a leader to have tough conversations. I'll give you a formula, teach you how to do that. This is not rocket science. So you got to be able to deal with conflict, especially as a leader. But if they don't have it, they're a lacquer hacker. It's going to come out in negativity, slow down work, passive aggressive, whatever it is. It's like, nope, get some conflict resolution skills. And then they don't have to behave poorly to send messages. So there's the lacquer hacker. That's a skill set, maybe a mindset because it's fearful for people. But then the 2 other types of hackers are the covert and the overt. So the covert hacker does it behind your back. and they like drama. They like pitting people against each other. They do the gaslighting. They say one thing and then something else is going on. They may actually act like they're your friend and then be tanking you behind the scenes. And so it's a lot like cancer. You usually don't know what's going on until behaviors start to change and there are symptoms. And usually it's mistrust. And so the thing that I'd like to tell your entrepreneurs is it's easier not to hire them than to deal with them. And so if somebody throws their former boss under a bus, don't hire them. They will throw it to you. Ask them how they handle conflict. Get a little bit of a knowledge of what's going on. If they have a work history where they burn through their relationships every 2 years, and again, they'll give you clues what is and isn't said, just listen carefully. But it's always behind the scenes. I hired one of these ones and he played me like a fiddle. We worked in the same organization. He worked for somebody that I didn't like. And I always pride myself in being professional. But what I didn't realize is, like with this colleague, I was professional, but I was definitely distant and cool. And so they are always looking for the chinks in the armor. And he saw it and he came in and he said, "Oh, Sherene, I really don't like working for this guy. And I just need a better leader. And I really want to work for you." He massaged my ego. He played me like a fiddle. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. My thought was he just needs a better leader. He'll be much better and happier on my team. Well, within 3 months, my whole team has gone to pot. And it's like, what the heck is happening? Well, it all came to a head one day and they attract the other weaker people to them. So people who aren't very strong, when it's healthy, they go toward the good. But when there's a hacker in the midst, they are drawn like a magnet to the hacker. So there were three of them. And I said to one of them, they had done something. And I'm like, listen, you have three choices. You can come in and do your job. You can quit or you can be fired. I don't care which of the three you pick, but these are your three choices. And they're like, you can't do that. Well, I can and I am. And these are your three choices. So I don't even remember what the person chose. He comes in the next morning and says to me, "Hire her back or I quit." And you know what my brain said? "Do you promise?" Because he was the root cause of all of the stirring up the stuff behind the scenes. And I just said, "Well, thank you for your service. I'll take your keys and that'll be fine." So he was a covert hacker. He caused me so many headaches. He was gone. We had to do some repair work, but about 3 months later, it was back to there was trust, there was laughter. People weren't doubting my integrity, my leadership, and their colleagues. And so then that's the covert. And then the last part is the
Well,
out.
I just want to
Right.
actually add one thing in here.
Yes.
So what you're talking about is stuff that really affects culture. And a lot of people don't realize how badly that person could damage your culture. And there's this one thing I do. Okay. And some people might say it's mischievous or whatever, but I've hired people and I've told them stuff and I tell them not to repeat it. And then I tell the other staff, let's see if this person repeats it to you. And I'll tell them something.
Trustworthy.
It's testing them to see if they're going to be a shit disturber or whether they're going to destroy the culture or what they're going to do. Right. And most people won't. Most people won't actually cause those problems. But occasionally you do get some big challenges that do arise and you got to be careful. Now, I also have always done this with vendors. Okay. And because I was a purchaser for many years, still am. And I'll actually say to that new vendor, I don't deal with that. I don't like dealing with that brand. That guy's a real jerk or a jack, whatever, right? All sorts of other little words and slangs or whatever, because I want to see if this new vendor will put them down and say like, yeah, I hate those guys. I hate this. So I do tests like that to see how they respond. And then I'll know whether I can trust them going forward. But most people don't know I'm testing them. I'm doing this not because I hate that vendor. I'm doing it to test the new vendor, right? And I'll say stuff like that to employees about maybe their prior employer, whatever, which is like what you're bringing up, right? If they start slandering, right? I'll see I'm testing the waters because I want to know what I'm going to expect. Right.
Maya Angelou said, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. People will always tell you who they are. And if it's the height of arrogance to assume that somebody will treat you differently than they do other people over the span of time. And I learned that from that person that was on my team. And I went, I will never make that mistake again. I love that you're testing because people will tell you who they are. And the behind your scenes stuff is a cancer, and your culture matters. And when trust gets eroded and people are now pitted against each other, it's no longer psychologically safe. And in a psychologically unsafe work environment, people are always scanning what's safe, what can I do, where do I duck and cover, I don't want this coming at me. And that's all energy that no longer is able to go to your business and to your organization. So that last type is the overt hacker. And these are people who are sometimes high flyers, and they're angry because they know they're working more than anybody else. And so they make sarcastic jabs at people. They may be a bully and they get in your face and they just start yelling at you. They blow up. They have like a short trigger. Well, in a healthy organization, the leader's going to pull them aside and say, if you ever do that again, you will no longer work here. We do not do that here. But it takes a leader to say that, because peers don't have the power to stop the bullies and the overt hackers. They don't. And it's the leader. But here's the fascinating part, Ben, is these people come in and they razzle dazzle and they snooze people. And so here's one of the clues that you've got somebody who's going to cause a lot of problems is they come in and they become best friends 1 or 2 levels over your head. And if somebody comes in and they immediately start charming your children and going to your kids' soccer games or becoming your best friend, they're going to show you as a leader a very different side of them than how they treat the people who are at their level or below them. And I believe that what they're doing is they're hedging their bets. They know that at some point somebody's going to say, Sherene is a problem. And then the leader's going to go, what are you talking about? She's the best person on the team. And if you have a loyal employee who's telling you somebody is a problem, that person is a problem. You may not see it because they don't do it in front of you. And so the strong leader says, we're going to disagree, but we will do it civilly. We're going to treat people with respect. We don't take jabs at people. We don't roll our eyes in meetings. All these things that send messages that are designed to silence, to shame, and to control people. And that's what the hackers game is they want to silence people, they want to control, and they want to shame people into silence. And so this is where it takes a strong leader with good conflict resolution skills and really good boundaries to go, I will protect my organization. I will protect my other employees. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And if this is happening, no more on my watch. And only the leader has the power to do that. It's impossible.
The last 2 of the hackers that you name, and this, they're the ones that typically you need to fire, and
Yes.
most companies won't. Especially the last one that you named. Why? Because they always put a monetary value on that person. That person brings in $1 million of business a year, and we do 3 million in sales. We can't get rid of 1/3 of our sales. But the problem is they're looking at, it's destroying their culture. And usually what happens is that's a person who's been there 3 to 5 years. They're growing it in popularity because, they sell lots of stuff, but they piss off all these other employees that are good employees, and they start quitting. So the door keeps rotating on some of your high flyers,
Yes.
and some of the other ones, because they can't put up with this person because they're so brutal. And the thing is, they're a high flyer that's extremely negative. And the problem is because they're a high flyer, but they're extremely negative, it destroys your culture internally so bad. But if you go and fire that person, your sales are not going to drop 33%. They might drop 5 or 10, but you are going to have to pick up the slack, and you better have good training programs in place to develop somebody to take over that very quickly. And this is where everybody gets it wrong. You have to fire those people, or you need to have a big heart to heart to find out why they're negative. Maybe there's something going wrong at home. Maybe something's going wrong at work. Maybe they thought they were going to be a manager already and they're not, right? But you have to be very, but most times, I would say 99% of the time, you need to fire these people and you don't. And because of that, your business never ever accelerates or grows.
And this may not be the case with the entrepreneur, but I worked with a Fortune probably 10 company, and I worked with all of their leaders in one of their divisions, and they had a hacker, and they had passed that man into 4 different departments within this division. I looked at the vice president in charge of this division, and I'm like, is this really what you want to do? We know that they're a problem. Why do we keep giving him to other managers and to other leaders? Let's make today the day that we say we're not tolerating that anymore. And they agreed to do that. But it was like, why on God's green earth would you keep somebody who is detrimental to your company? And I love what you're saying is, yes, they may be your best salesperson, but if you're losing everybody else in the back, especially in today's world where it's so hard to find people, the part that just intrigues me are the leaders who never ask what's going on. My mother was a principal. She had 0 turnover in her school, but she was not a happy principal. She loved being a teacher. So she went back to being a teacher. They brought in a hacker, overt and covert, again, very skilled with manipulating the people over her and razzle dazzling. But so many teachers left that building that instead of investigating what's going on, why is everybody jumping ship, the administration implemented a no more transfer policy. I don't get that. So if people are leaving, ask yourself, why are they leaving? And if you say it's money, why are they leaving? And why are pockets of people leaving? And why are people leaving under one specific leader? There are always clues. When I was part of a very dysfunctional department at my university, and I was never going to trash anybody, and I never told people why I left. But had they asked, I would have had an honest conversation with them, but they didn't ask. And so are you asking people why they're leaving? And are you listening? Sometimes people go, well, it's just a better job. Listen to their voice tone. If their voice doesn't match their words, don't believe their words. They're being polite. They don't want to tell you, but they're probably living in hell and they can't wait to get out of there. And they wish that you would do something about the bully because they have no power to take care of that person. Psychologically safe work environments are critical to long-term success. You will never have the success, your listeners will never have the success that they deserve and desire if they allow, I call them alligators, free range in their workplaces. In a zoo, we put them in cages and we go and we look at them, but alligators are terrifying, and you need to look at not unleashing those on your other employees. Wow. And customers, because it bleeds over sometimes into customers. You've watched that, I'm sure, as well.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
Absolutely. We are who we are. Yes.
So, well, this is good. We've definitely gone over our time, but I think this was a great discussion. The entrepreneurs are going to get a lot from this.
So, I so hope so. And I so have loved talking with you, Ben.
Yeah, this was great. How do people connect with you, Sherene?
I'm the People IQ expert. My name and email is here. It's Sherene@fullyengaged.us. Please reach out to me. And if you're interested, I have books on this. If you would like somebody to come in and work with you, I'd be delighted to help you in any way that I can to create a psychologically safe workplace, to have leaders who actually understand people so that your engagement is up and therefore your productivity is up and therefore your profitability is up. So thank you. It's fun. I love what I do. And it's just a privilege to get to have fascinating conversations and to pour into people's lives.
Yeah, this was a great discussion. And honestly, like I could see another half hour of us talking or more, but I was like, we got to cut this off. But yeah, you're getting sparking all sorts of memories in my head of stuff that I can continuously bring up to keep this discussion going. So,
Well, I would love to come back another time. And I always like when we keep things in short snippets instead of overwhelming people.
oh
So
yeah, no, I thought this was great. I really appreciate your time today, and I hope people get a lot from this.
I do too. Thanks, Ben. Thanks so much.
Thank you.